Good evening and welcome to the SpeakerMC Show. Our show today is Fostering the Plantation, about foster children. Yes. Oh, excuse me. We are going to be attacking this show from the perspective of the child. We're going to know who are these children who are in foster care system, why are they in the system, and what happens to them. If you are a friend of the SpeakerMC Show, this show is going to be a little bit different than our usual show, and you'll see. So usually we have the intro to the show and the overview, and we pause for some commercial breaks, and then we come back and we introduce our guests and our show topic we dive deep into, and we break, and then we come back and we chat with our guests, and then we say goodbye. Well, this show is a little bit different because I'm not sure if the subject matter kind of scared a lot of people, but no one opted to be on this show today. I really don't know. So I decided that I would be doing it as a presentation for some research that I did that was prompted by a conversation that I had with a colleague of mine about foster care system and adoption principles. So I hope that you get value from this information that I'm sharing with you here tonight. And if you can help someone with it, then please feel free to do so. And if it helps you, then I am totally honored, because at the end of the day, it's about what we can do for each other to help each other. Okay? So let's proceed. Our show, as I said, is about the children of the foster care. Foster care refers to the system within a state that cares for minor children when a court has decided that their parents are not able to properly render the care that's needed for them. And that's just not in the United States, by the way. That's globally, all over the world. These children are in the system because of some level of abuse and neglect, but those aren't the only reasons. The foster parents, stability has to be secured for the children, and the state administers several hours of training to the adults that are seeking this kind of responsibility of rendering this kind of care to the children. The approval process considers not only the adults, but also the environment, the safety. Once the parents are approved by the state, then these adults are labeled foster parents. The state allocates a monthly subsidy and a medical card to cover the expenses and the medical needs of the child. So dental care, medical care, inoculations, everything, right? They get the subsidy that helps them with all these expenses. And it's the best, but is that the best place for them? Because as it says here, the ill treatment doesn't stop when they get to the new home. 33% of foster kids are abused by an adult while in the foster care home. Yeah. So the SpeakerMC Show is all about relationships, how we relate to ourselves, our environment, and to each other. Well, it's 60 minutes, and it's usually conducted with myself as a host and two guests. Today, we're going to do it as a webinar type presentation. And we're exploring how we treat each other, how we relate to each other, namely the children. Our intention is to empower you, the audience, and enlighten you about creating harmonious environments and boosting your self-confidence. And usually with our guests, we provide a platform and an opportunity to share their message. And for everyone, it's all about having fun. Well, today it's about taking the information and impacting some level, whether it's informational, or you can assist someone who's in a situation, whatever it is. But I totally hope that you will find value from this presentation today, as much as I found value from the conversation I had with someone. So as I said, we'll discuss what's the foster care and what happens to the unchosen foster children and how can we help. And we're going to discuss this from the child's perspective. Yeah. There will be a part 2 of this discussion, by the way. Let's see. Who are the foster children? According to Statistic Brain, there was a research that was done in March 29th, 2017. And it stated that the number of kids in the foster care system at any point in time are 400,540. You heard me, over 400,000 children in the system. And the cost for one child to be in foster care for 1 year is about $23,500. So that gives a total revenue for the annual, for all these 400,000 children, to be $9 trillion. The average age of the child in foster care is about 6.5 years old. Yeah. It is to be noted that foster care is not just a USA institution, it's global. But for today, we're going to speak only on the conditions of the system in this United States. And as I said, their average age is 6.5 years old, and for 1 year of sustenance for medical and living expenses, the cost to the state is about $9 trillion. It's over 400,000 children, 52% of them being male and 48% being female. The ethnicity is 41% white and 27 black and 21 Hispanic, and multiracial is about 10%. Now, I mentioned in the beginning that these statistics were provided by Statistic Brain, and it was research that was conducted March 29th of 2017. So my understanding is that the birth family is also tasked by the courts to complete a complete set of lists of tasks to be approved in order to be reunited with the children. But what does the child want? Well, let's see. 400,000 children, 6.5 years old, 52% male, 48% female. Do these children want to be reunited with their birth parents? I mean, there is a reason why they are not with them, right? They are younger. Kids that are younger than a year old are 6% of the 400,000 or over 400,000 children in foster care. The median age is between 1 to 5. And another average is between 6 to 14. Now, when they start getting to the older teens, what happens then? Yeah. What do they look like, these children? And what about the children that end up, if they're not reunited with their birth parents, what happens to them if they get too old? How long are they to be in the foster care system? This placement is usually designed to be short-term, temporary, like a year, and assuming the consideration of the process is in the best interest of the child. But is it really? Because if 65% of children who age out of California, they don't even have a place to live. 1 out of 5 of them are homeless. 1 out of 4 are part of the justice system. and 40% will not complete high school. Will not. The system is set up as the main intention to reunite the family, but I thought the children were placed with another family because their birth family could not provide the safety and security needed by that child. So the teenagers, when they age out, the over 18-year-olds, they end up in some kind of juvenile detention home or group home. These teenage children, yeah, they're the unchosen ones, right? While they're there, they're denied the stability that a permanent placement of an adoption would give them, resulting in them going out of the system with no support in place. Is that why they then become homeless or then become part of the justice system? And is that a good call? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So is the foster care system the seeds for the penal system? Is that what it is? Do we need more adopters or not? As mentioned before, we're discussing the subject from the child's perspective. What's foster care and what happens to the unchosen children? How can we help? The discussion will continue on March 19th show, when we shall investigate from the fostering parents' point of view and the money behind the $9 trillion US dollars. We'll also shed light on what some of us will do for the love of money. Here we are treating our children. How are we treating our children? Yeah, hope you'll join us then. So we will not take a little break. We are just going to continue with this, and I'll just introduce myself. My name is Marcia Chambers, aka SpeakerMC, and I'm a sexual wellness consultant. And my area of expertise is working with women who are lonely in their relationships to go from sexless to steamy. I host a show called the S.W.E.L.L Happy Hour. I do a podcast called the S.W.E.L.L Playroom, and I co-host a radio show called The Bush is Swelling Show. And all three concentrate on shifting how we think about sex and sexuality. And my mission is to reduce the world's divorce rate by 50%. And that's why I created S.W.E.L.L for Women, because I observe people just exchanging DNA without asking the right questions beforehand. And they're subjecting the rest of us to their dysfunctions. So this show that I also host, the SpeakerMC Show, is all about relationships. And it explores how we relate to ourselves and to our environments and to each other. So tonight's discussion, we are talking about fostering the plantation, about the foster children. And the reason why I found, or the reason for the birth of this show, so to speak, is a conversation that I had with a colleague of mine. And she mentioned to me that she and her husband wanted to adopt or foster some children. And they were denied and denied and denied by the system. And I said, well, why were you denied so many times? And they said, well, they thought that we were too old. I said, well, how old were you? She said that they were in their 30s, their early 30s. They're too old? Like, really? Seriously? So I said, well, that sounds a little bit strange. And they were willing participants. They wanted to adopt a child. They wanted to adopt a child, and they were denied and then denied and then denied. That didn't make any sense to me. So I started doing some investigating, because you hear every day how people are going to Africa, they're going to India, they're going to China, they're going all over the place, everywhere else in the world, and adopting these children. And here we have over 400,000 children just ready for the pick. They have been displaced from their homes for one reason or another. And you have people who are willing to give them the stability, the love, the care that they need, and they're being denied. Let's check it out. Okay, I'm going to go off camera again. So let's talk about these foster children. We already addressed what the foster care system is all about. We know that the system is incorporated in many countries worldwide and in the USA, but also that the courts decide that the children's parents are not able to render them proper care, and that these are the children who have withstood some level of abuse. So now let's look at the reasons and revisit why they are foster children. There are several reasons why these children enter into the foster care. Let's talk about a few of them. So there is physical abuse. 28%. One of the most prominent reasons we think of a child entering the system is due to extreme physical abuse. Now, that definition is totally left up to the state agencies and each state or country. So one may define extreme physical abuse in one way, and another state or country might define extreme physical abuse in another way. So here we have 28% of some kind of extreme physical abuse. Then there is sexual abuse, 14%. That's another reason. The levels of sexual abuse are also varying and can range between the child viewing sex acts like porn to the fondling and the penetration of that child. Then there's abandonment, that's 13%. And that's another sad case. It's when a child is left at the babysitter's and not retrieved at all, or left at home alone. Yeah. And what about neglect? 8%. They're not feeding the child or tending to the living or safety or emotional needs of the child. It's not as cut and dry as the physical or the sexual abuse. It's a little bit harder to prove. Then you have medical neglect. Some religions can sway a parent to non-conventional care of their child, but it's when the total medical needs of the child are discounted that the system may view that as medical neglect, and that accounts for 7% of these children. Death is 3%, death of a parent, similar to incarceration, or no relatives to care for the child. They just bunch that up as death. And then the other 13% filters out through to incarceration, truancy, and voluntarily entered. So incarceration, we know when a parent or parents are in jail and there's no relative to care for the child, and the child is placed into the system. Truancy, when the children frequently are missing from school. Voluntarily entered, when discipline will not help. And the parent places the child in foster care. And lately there's been a surge of kids entering the system due to opioid crisis. Sadly, many homes have more than one of these issues, causing the over 400,000 children in the system. And who are the kids in foster care? What do they actually look like? Well, we know that the children are younger than a year. I think this was the slide for that. They're younger than a year, 6% of them. They're between age 1 through 5, 32%. They are 6 to 10, 21% of them. And 11 to 15 years, 23%. So between 6 to 15, it's a good chunk, like 44%. And you have 18% who are 16 to 18 years old. That's just that 2-year window. And then the over 18s is a very, very small percentage, very small. This placement is designed to be short-term or temporary, as I mentioned. Assuming that the children assuming that the consideration with the process is in the best needs of the child, right? But is it? The system is set up with the main intention being to reunite the family. But I thought that the children were placed with another family because the birth family couldn't provide safety and security needed for the child. So then how long should or will a child remain in foster care? 7 years ago, in 2011, the average time to hold a child in foster care was 23.9 months. That's almost 2 years. And 2 years ago, this is 2018, we're talking 2016, 2 years ago, the average time for children in the system was 20 months. So they just cut it by maybe 4 months. 52% of those who left the system, they were reunited with their parents or their primary caregivers. That term is called reunification. Reunification. And some other reasons for the children exiting the system were adoption or living with relatives or streamlined into some kind of guardianship scenario. According to the stats in 2016, there were about 118,000 children in the system waiting to be adopted. You heard me? 118,000 children waiting to be adopted, with the majority being white. 44% of them were white. And this lady and her husband, they were ready to adopt, ready to foster, and they were denied and denied and denied. Why are there so many children in the system waiting to be adopted? Every day I see couples going to Mexico and Africa to adopt, when there's so many here waiting for a stable home. So many of them. And why is that? Is the adoption process so hard in the USA? Well, what are some of the criteria for couples to adopt? The prospective foster adoptive parents may be single and or married, and they must be 21 years of age, financially stable and responsible mature adults. They must complete an application. They must share information regarding their background and lifestyle. They must provide relative and non-relative references. They must show proof of marriage and or divorce. They must agree to a home study, which includes visits with all household members. They must allow staff to complete a criminal history background check and an abuse neglect check on all the adults in the household. And they must attend free training to learn about issues of abused and neglected children. So this training provides an opportunity for the family and the foster care department, the DFPS, to assess whether foster care or adoption is best for the family. The family may withdraw from the meetings at any time. There's no charge for the meetings. Foster adoptive parents generally train together. But even after these stringent measures, there are still some cases that fall through the cracks. For example, in 2004, this 12-year-old girl was placed with Todd and Lisa Mortensen, and she was sexually abused by her foster father. It was a private placement arranged with an adoptive family of the girl. And this girl was in Farmington, New Mexico. Yes. In 2004, Todd Mortensen was charged with 65 counts of criminal sexual penetration and 20 counts of criminal sexual contact against another girl who had been placed with the family. All 85 counts were dismissed by the prosecutor in 2005, because the girl was deemed mentally unstable to testify. There was an earlier case in 1999. Tom Kuzik and his live-in female companion, they adopted or fostered 28 children. 28 children. 4 girls and 24 boys. The average age was 8 to 9 years old. And this case was in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. At least 5 of the boys accused him of sexually abusing them. Kuzik committed suicide 2 days before the trial was to begin. And he was claimed to be a famous composer, but apparently his income was only from the foster care and adoption subsidies. So how can this be? The fostering parents will jump through all these hoops to subject the child to similar mistreatment that they were escaping in most instances. Could that be the reason why some children run away from the foster care and become homeless? But this was just a temporary situation, right? Earlier we stated that the average time in foster care for a child has been 20 months. There are about 28,000 cases where children have been stuck in the system for 5 or more years. What effect does this have on the child? Going from one home to another for years, no stability, no relationships formed or sustained. Is this good for the well-being of the child? This must be negatively affecting the child's social and emotional skills. What about children who have siblings who've been placed in the system? Or are they kept together? Are the rules handed down by the state and federal department relaxed enough to allow that to happen? And remember the teens who enter the system and are placed in the group homes? They too are denied stability of being permanently placed. And eventually, they age out of the system. Yeah, with no support to fend for themselves. Remember, 1 out of 5 ended up homeless, and 1 out of 4 became part of the justice system. More than 22,000 young people between the ages of 18 to 20, they were discharged from the foster care system, and they were sent to live on their own with some legal guardian. So what happens to those young men and women who were in dysfunctional foster households? Are they the next teen parents? The next uneducated poor of our society? The next criminals just trying to survive? Sex trafficking, prostitution, new food for the predators and the human traffickers. Most of the teenage prostitutes were those that had come from the foster care system, and they just aged out. So what can we do? Well, I shared that my friend and her husband were denied to adopt, and I'm sure that they weren't the only ones. The question is why? The system has over 100,000 children waiting to be adopted. Why not process families who fit the criteria? Why not? Especially if the family can adopt more than one in the case of the siblings. Why does the system want these children to remain in the system for 3, 4, 5 years? Why do more psychological damage to these youngsters? Are they being farmed or preened for the penal system? Is that what this is about? Are the best interests of the child the main focus? Well, what can we do to help? Do we just throw more money at the problem? Well, the agencies would say that more money would help for applying better quality training, staffing, and support mechanisms in place. Some social workers would tell you how overworked and underpaid they are. We believe them. Maybe funding would be a good start, but is that enough? The parents who are qualified, and who are willing to provide stable locations and homes for these children, what will that look like? Will they be discounted because of red tape? Maybe focusing more on the children instead of the financial outcomes would be a start. Several states are assessing and reviewing policies of the current child welfare system to figure out how to make these improvements. There's currently a national campaign to improve these policies, and a group of child welfare advocates, researchers, and community advocates and foundation officials formed this thing called CHAMPS, CHAMPS, Children Need Amazing Parents. And they formed it to ensure bright futures for children in foster care by promoting the high quality foster parenting. To achieve this goal, CHAMPS will work with state policymakers, child welfare administrators, and advocates to leverage research and spur policy reforms in up to 25 states over the next 5 years. A system with more appropriate foster homes and care facilities to meet the diverse and complex needs of the children in their custody could minimize these placement changes. Well, hopefully this campaign will provide or will help to provide the adequate safety net for these children when they do fall into life circumstances of abuse, death, and neglect. So, as I said, I will not be breaking for commercial, and you can meet me, I am your guest. But what I will do is I would hope that this has provided some sort of information for you. It has provided some change in your perspective about the foster care system, or just giving you a little bit more meat about the foster care system. I know in doing the research to create this presentation for you, I was informed. I didn't know that there were so many kids that were in the system. I didn't know that there were over 100,000 children waiting to be adopted. I didn't know that there were over 400,000 children that were just plugged into the system on any given day. On any given day, it would be over 400,000 children, any given day. And I didn't know that though it was designed to be a temporary situation, that a lot of them ended up being like 5 years into the system. Now, maybe that might be a good thing, and maybe it might be a bad thing, because if it's a good, stable household, then okay, maybe it's a good thing. Then if it's over a year, then why not just adopt to create further stability? And even though it's 33% of the children who end up in these neglected foster homes, there are, well, I would assume there is a healthier 60-something% that are in stable households that have not fallen through the cracks. But regardless, the 33% do matter. And I thought that it was important to bring this to our consciousness, to let us know a little bit more, because many of us who may not be in the foster care system or have any dealings with the foster care system may not even have this kind of information. And I'm just saying that maybe even just this little bit of information can assist someone somewhere along their journey. Or if it's not you, you can help someone else. So I hope that you found some value in this presentation. And we will be doing part 2 from the perspective of the foster parent on the 19th. So I hope you'll join us then. And just a word to let you know that if you're in the New York area, Saturday, March 31st, we'll be having our next Champagne and Chocolate Conversations. I'm so happy and so proud of that. And it will be at 59 Franklin Street in, oh, that's not Brooklyn, in New York. 59 Franklin Street in New York, New York. That's a typo. It's on Saturday, March 31st, and it's a 2-hour conversation. We're going to be talking about libido and simple ways, lifestyle techniques, lifestyle tweaks to bring your libido back to the forefront, because 43% of women especially have very low libidos. So it should be a fun group, small intimate group. It's $27. It's a seat deposit. You get your money back when you are in attendance. We play games, we have fun, we laugh, we talk, we have quizzes, we have raffles. I mean, it's just fun, sheer fun. 2 hours of sheer fun. And you learn something along the way, actually learn something along the way. So I hope that you can make it on Saturday, March 31st at our Champagne and Chocolate Conversations. So now we are at the end, and as I promised you, on the 19th, we will be continuing this conversation. Money, I love you. Yes, it's actually what you will do for money. Yes, and we're talking about the foster care system again. We'll have a guest this time. Yes. Now to close out our show, I always quote my favorite mentor passed on, Miss Maya Angelou. Maya always says, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I hope that I've at least made you a little bit more informed and a little warm and fuzzier, or a little bit more enlightened in this presentation. So until next time, I'll see you then. Connect with me on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. My handle is @SpeakMC. Check out my website at marciachambers.com, or email me at marcia@marciachambers.com. And I will see you at the next Speaker MC Show. Have a good evening.